Hi everyone, this is Mr. Zhang, and today we'll be going over the math homework for Class P. This is for session U13. All right, for question number 1, it says if 4c is equal to d and if 0.4f is equal to c as well, what is the value of d when f is equal to 40? So here what you have to do is substitute in. First, you know that f is equal to 40, so you'll have to substitute the variable f with 40. So when you do that, you have 0.4 times 40 is equal to c. And 0.4 can be rewritten as 4/10. So when you multiply 4/10 by 40, the 0 will cancel out. So then that will give you c, which is equal to 16. Now once you figure out that c is equal to 16, you can then substitute c into this first equation. You know that 4 times c is equal to d. So that will give you 4 times 16 is equal to d, and 4 times 16 is 64. So that's going to be choice B. All right, next for question number 2, K, L, and M are points on a line, such that L lies somewhere between K and M. If KL is congruent to LM, and the length of KM is 6, then what's the length of KL? So first, the symbol means congruent. And congruent just means the same size, same shape, same everything. Just exactly the same. So that means that you first draw a line. L is in between K and M, but you know that KL, line segment KL, is congruent to line segment LM, so you can mark it up in this way, which means that these two are congruent. And you know that KM is equal to 6, so that's the whole thing. And it's got essentially kind of two pieces that are half as long, so each of these will be equal to 3, because 3 plus 3 is equal to 6. So KL will be a length of 3. Next, for number 3, the product of two integers is between 125 and 145 inclusive. Which of the following cannot be one of the integers? So here you have a product of two integers, and an integer just a whole number. And these whole numbers, the product of two of them has to be between 125 and 145. So if you go through all the choices and you write out their times tables, you want to see which one has a times table product that will be in between 125 and 145. And inclusive means it includes the endpoint. So in order for something to be to have a product that's not inside this range, number one had to be really big. So you would actually try the 30 times table first. And if you try the 30 times table, you have 30 times 4 is 120, but in 30 times 5 will be 150. And we see that you don't have anything between 125 and 145. So again, we're looking for what that cannot be it, so the answer is choice E. If you have the 30 times table, 30 times 4 is equal to 120. 30 times 5 is 150. So there's no way the product can be between 125 and 145. Next, for number 4, if A is equal to -7 and B is equal to A plus 3, then what's the value of B cubed times A minus B divided by B minus A? So here you know that A is equal to -7, and B you have in terms of A, so the first thing you got to do is substitute in. So then B will be -7 plus 3, which is -7 plus 3, which will give you -4. So you know that B is equal to -4. Then when you substitute everything in, instead of B cubed, you're going to have -4 cubed. Then in parentheses, you have A minus B, so you'll have -7 minus -4. Be careful with the negative signs here. I can use parentheses to make it a little easier. And the denominator is b minus a. So that's a negative 4 minus negative 7. Again, be careful there. So then you just have to use order of operations and solve. So remember order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Got to do the parentheses first. So if you try this one first, you have negative 7 minus negative 4. And when you have two adjacent negative signs, it turns into a plus because they cancel out. So this turns to negative 7 plus 4, which is equal to negative 3. So you're done with the parentheses. Then you can move on to exponents, which is this piece. So negative 4 cubed is really negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. So when you multiply negative 4 times negative 4, you get positive 16. But when you multiply positive 16 by negative 4, it becomes negative again. It'll turn to negative 64. So that will be in the front. And finally, you have the denominator, which is a normal subtraction. So you got to do that, take care of that one first. And negative 4, again, minus a negative 7. Two adjacent negative signs cancel out. This turns to negative 4 plus 7, to turn to positive 3. And now you can finally cross simplify. Negative 3 and positive 3 can cancel out. And you get a factor of negative 1 left over. And negative 1 times negative 64 is positive 64. And that's choice E. So after doing a whole bunch of these operations, you eventually get to question number, number 64. All right, next for number 5, in the table above, the first number in each row is followed by its 3 prime factors. What's the value of x? So you have to identify the prime factors, and the keyword here is prime. So prime numbers have exactly 2 factors, just one and itself. You have to do a prime factorization, which involves, remember, factor times factor is equal to product. So you just have to keep breaking down the numbers, and eventually you'll get to the prime numbers. So here, for 385, you break it down. You can break it down to 5. So if you divide 385 by 5, you get 77. You can divide or split 77 into 2 prime factors, 7 and 11. So x has to be 11. Choice B. All right, next for number 6, a scientist performs any experiment to test the effect of the use of fertilizer on plant growth. The scientist finds that adding fertilizer to soil increases the plant growth up to a certain point, beyond which any additional fertilizer does not affect the growth of the plant. So just too much fertilizer. Which of the following graphs most accurately describes this or reflects this information? If you look at a graph, if you look at choice A, for example, this is a direct relationship, which means that the more fertilizer you add, the taller the plant. And it goes on forever. And notice that it starts out like this, so it should increase with a positive slope. The slope is greater than 0, up to a certain point. Over here, it says that once you go past a certain point, it does not affect the growth of the plant anymore. And what that means is that there is a constant relationship, or there's no direct or inverse relationship. So the graph will just be a flat line, also called the plateau. So if a graph plateaus, that means that x, the independent variable, doesn't really affect the dependent variable. So you want to start out going up, and then it'll just flatten out. And you see that in choice D. So here in the beginning, if you kind of annotate this graph, this is a direct relationship. So more fertilizer means more growth. But up to that certain point, there's a turning point here, you kind of flatten out. And this is that constant relationship where y is equal to some constant k. This means that if you keep adding fertilizer, the growth of the plant, it doesn't matter anymore. The plant can't grow anymore, any taller. So there's no increase in growth. So that's the story in the problem here. Oh, and we have to do number 7. If the price of a certain product is increased by 15%, by approximately what percent must the new price be reduced to obtain the original price? All right, so here you increase something by 15%. So you could just pretend something costs $100. If this costs $100, if you increase or add 15%, well, 15% of 100 is just 15, so it will cost $115 now. Now, what you want to do is to decrease this to make it back to $100. So you have to change or decrease $15. But now the new whole is 115. This is the new total. So this decrease of 15 will represent the part. So you'll have to do 15 over 115. Here, if you simplify this fraction, you can divide by 5. That'll give you 3 over 23. 23 is a prime number, so you'll have to just divide here. 3 divided by 23. 23 goes into 31s. Put another 0. 23 goes into 70 about 3 times. Because 3 times 23 is 69. So you have 1. So it'll be 0.130, which means that you have to round down. So it will be about 13%. 0.130 times 100% is equal to 130%. So that means there is, 13.0%. So that's choice A. So notice if you increase something by 15%, the fake answer is choice B. If you decrease it by 15%, you actually get too small because the second 15% is actually stronger than the first 15%. So you have to be careful here. You add 15%, turn to 115, you can only subtract 13% to get back to $100, or approximately 13%. That's because the whole increased, the total increase, so the second percentage will be different from the first percentage. All right, and here's the summary for this page. All right, next for question number 6, or question number 8. In order to raise money for a school dance, Shanice, Raphael, and Muhammad sold candies. Raphael had 3 times as many candies as Muhammad and 28 fewer than Shanice. Shanice then gave 12 candies to Raphael, who in turn gave 1/4 of his new total to Muhammad. If Raphael then had 12 more candies than Muhammad, how many candies did Shanice have originally? All right, a lot of things going on, but you have 3 variables, S, R, M. And here for S, R, and M, these are the 3 variables. And this is just in the beginning. We had to turn the word sentence to a number sentence. So the first sentence says Raphael had 3 times as many candies as Muhammad. So here, Raphael had more than Muhammad. Specifically had 3 times as many. So you got to be careful here because Raphael is a bigger number. You have to take the smaller number, M, and times it by 3 to be equal to the big number. Okay, you don't want to multiply Raphael's candy by 3 because the number's already bigger. So R is equal to 3 times M, not the other way around. So that's the first equation. Then, for the second equation, Raphael also had 20 fewer than Shanice. So Shanice actually had more than Raphael, because again, it's 20 fewer. So that means that you have to take the smaller number, R, add 20 to it, and then you'll get the big number, which is Shanice, which is S. So Shanice actually has the most. Now, from these three, or from these two equations, you know that Shanice then gave 12 candies to Raphael. So what that means is Shanice subtracted 12, and Raphael added 12. But then Raphael gave 1/4 of its new total to Muhammad. So his new total is R plus 12. What Raphael is going to do is he's going to give 1/4 away. If you give a quarter or give 25% away, that means that you have 75% left. So his new total is R plus 12. So that means that 25% of R plus 12 will be given to M, whereas 75% of R plus 12 is kept. So what you have to do is to come up with these two equations. So 25% of R plus 12, 25% is really 1/4, and of means multiply. So you're really multiplying 1/4 times R plus 12, and you have to distribute. Give you 1/4 R plus 1/4 of 12, which is just 3. So this is given to Muhammad. So once you know that it's given to Muhammad, you can take this number and add it to Muhammad. So Muhammad has, of course, M candies, but we can then use this first equation. R is equal to 3 times M, and we want to isolate M. So M is going to be equal to R divided by 3. And the key here is to take this 1/4 R plus 3, and you substitute in here and add it to itself. So Muhammad initially had R over 3 candies, and then you're going to add 1/4 R plus 3. So from here, 1/3 and 1/4 has the LCD of 12. These two guys are like terms. So if the LCD is 12, you know that R over 3 is really 4R over 12, and a 1/4 R is really 3R over 12. So we add them together, that will be 7R over 12, and you still have that plus 3. So this is the new candies that Muhammad will have. Now once you have that, Raphael then had 12 more candies than Muhammad. So this is the new candies that Muhammad had. Raphael only had 75% kept. So you do the same thing here. 75% is 3/4. Of means multiply. To multiply by R plus 12, you distribute here, and that will give you 3/4 of R. And 3/4 of 12 is equal to 9. And this is the amount of candies that Raphael had now. And we know that this number is only 12 more than Muhammad. So here, you'll have to subtract 3/4 of R plus 9, the candy that Raphael has. Subtract the candy that Muhammad has. Again, M is here. That's 7R over 12 plus 3. And that's going to be equal to 12. So here, again, you got to do LCD. So 3/4 of R is really equal to 9/12 of r plus 9. And here, got to be careful. There's a negative 1. You're going to have to distribute that. So you're subtracting 7r over 12, and you're subtracting 3. Because that negative 1 times that positive 3 is negative 3. Now from here, 9/12 of r and negative 7r over 12 are like terms. So 9/12 minus 7/12 is equal to 2/12 of r. And then you have plus 9 and that minus 3, which is just plus 6, is equal to 12. We can solve this equation. Finally, this is 1/6 of r plus 6 is equal to 12. If you subtract 6 from both sides, get that 1/6 of r is equal to 6. And if you multiply by 6 on both sides, cancel out that reciprocal, you get that r is equal to 36, finally. So once you know that Raphael is equal to 36 candies, you can then substitute back in here. Shanice is r plus 20, or 36 plus 20, which is equal to 56. And that's how you get choice B. So it was a really long problem. System of equations with 3 variables and 3 equations, and it was really annoying to solve. You had to do a lot of distribution, and you had to distribute and isolate variables and solve. So for these types of questions, definitely save these for the end on a timed exam. All right, next for number 9, the distance from which a certain light is visible is directly proportional to the wattage of the light bulb. If a light is visible from 60 meters when a 40 watt light bulb is used, what's the distance the light is visible if a 75 watt bulb is used? So directly proportional just means a proportion, of course. As x increase, y will also increase at the same rate. So here you have 2 quantities. You have the distance and wattage. So that's a ratio they can make. So the first bulb is visible 60 meters away if it's 40 watts. The second bulb, is 75 watts. And you don't know the distance, so you can call it x meters. So here you would cross multiply. And we cross multiply, have 16 times 75 to go to 40 times x. And you want to solve for x, so you want to divide by 40 on both sides. And when you do that, 16 and 40, you have a common factor of 8. And then 75 and 5, they have a common factor of 5. So x is equal to 2 times 15, or 30. So this would be choice A, 30 meters. So you solve this by using proportions. You can also solve this using unit rates as well. All right, next from number 10, if the square root of 36x squared plus 24xy plus 4y squared is equal to the square root of 9x squared plus 54xy plus 81y squared, then which of the following expressions could be equal to y? All right, so here you have 2 giant square roots. Let's get rid of them. You can do that by squaring both sides. So once you do that, once you square both sides, you end up with this equation 36x squared plus 24xy plus 4y squared, and that's going to be equal to 9x squared plus 54xy plus 81y squared. Now, if you take each of these sides individually, you can actually see some common factors for 36, 24, and 4. So on the left side, you can actually factor out the factor of 4. So if you factor out 4, you end up with 9x squared plus 6xy plus y squared. And on the right side, you have 9, 54, 81. They're all factors of, or multiples of 9. So we can factor out a 9. and that will give you x squared plus 6xy plus 9y squared. Now, the reason you do this is because both of these actually turn out to be, the stuff is out the parentheses at least, they turn out to be perfect squares. And you have to actually use the factoring pattern, x plus y squared, which is equal to x squared plus 2xy plus y squared. That's the idea that we're using. That's actually the format that we have, except you have a multiple in front of, for example, this 9, this 9 here, and they're kind of symmetrical. So for 9x squared plus 6xy plus y squared, it turns out to be 3x plus y. So that's how you factor that. 3x plus y times 3x plus y. You can FOIL first, outer, inner, last to double check. On the right side, you have x plus 3y times x plus 3y. Again, you can first, outer, inner, last to double check. So just FOILing. And here, because it's the same factor, just multiplied again, you can rewrite this as or with a square. So it turns out that both of these sides are perfect squares again. So then you can just do another square root on both sides. And this time, because you have a product, you can split this in half. And the square root of 4 is just equal to 2. And the square root of 3x plus y squared is just 3x plus y. On the right side, the square root of 9 is 3. And the square root of x plus 3y squared is x plus 3y. And from here, you can just do your normal distribution. And you get 6x plus 2y is equal to 3x plus 9y. So we're almost there because you want to isolate y from the question. So you want to subtract 2y from both sides. Subtract 3x from both sides. And you get that 3x is equal to 7y, and the last step is to divide by 7, and you get that y is equal to 3x over 7, or 3/7 of x. That's choice C. So the key here was to utilize this factoring pattern, because and recognize that you do have perfect squares, kind of like symmetric perfect squares. All right, for number 11, what is the value of 2 times 4 to the negative third power? So this negative exponent is an application of this rule. B to the negative a is equal to 1 over b to the a. This is a reciprocal. So what that means is the 2 and the multiply is the same. 4 to the negative third is equal to 1 over 4 to the third power. So that's 2 times... This is just 1 over 64, because 4 is equal to 64. So that's just 2 over 64. Remember, this is 2 over 1. And 2 over 64 can simplify to 1 over 32, not 13, 1 over 32. So that's the answer, 1 over 32. All right, next for question number 12, the ratio of a to b is the same as the ratio of 1.4 to 7. Now, if a is equal to 14, what's the value of b? So the key word here is ratio, and when you have two ratios, that's essentially a proportion. So here, the ratio of a to b, in which a is equal to 14, and b, you don't know what it is, that's the same as 1.4 to 7. So if this is the proportion that you can solve, here you can cross multiply, or you can, in this case, just multiply, or not multiply, divide 14 by 10, and you got 1.4, so you also divide the denominator by 10. So b over 10 is equal to 7. And to solve for b, you'll want to multiply both sides by 10. You get that b is equal to 70. So b has to be equal to 70 in this case, because 70 divided by 10 is equal to 7. So the answer is b equals 70. You can also solve this just using unit rates as well. All right, next for number 13 in the figure above. What's the value of a plus b plus c plus e plus f? All right, so here we know that you have a, b, and c are 3 parts of this quadrilateral, whereas e and f are 3 parts of this triangle. So what you can actually do is just have 2 more angles. Let's call those x and y. The reason we want that is because if you add this quadrilateral, that's 360 degrees. So a plus b plus c plus x is equal to 360. Then on the right, you have y plus e plus f. That's equal to 180, because that's a triangle. And triangles add up to 180 degrees. So once you know that, the last equation that you can use is these 3. Here you have a straight line, and that means that these angles are supplementary, which means they add up to 180 degrees. So it's just a straight line. So x plus y plus 70 is equal to 180. And from here, you can subtract 70 from both sides. To get that x plus y has to be 110. So now you can replace x and y here with 110. So that means that x plus y is 110 plus a plus b plus c plus e plus f. And if you add the other side, that's equal to 540. So once you know that a plus b, x plus y is equal to 110, you can subtract 110 on both sides, and you get what you're looking for. So when you subtract 110, you will get 430 as the sum. So you come up with an equation using these shapes found on this large quadrilateral. Next, for number 14, if the sum of 4 consecutive odd integers is 144, what's the least of these integers? So one thing that you could use as a shortcut is if you have consecutive numbers or numbers in an ordered pattern. Whenever you have a set of consecutive numbers, you can actually use a shortcut that the average of a list of consecutive numbers is equal to the median. And this is going to help us out a lot because we actually have the sum of these 4 numbers, which is 144. And remember, the average is equal to the total divided by the number of data. So in this case, you know that the total is equal to 144, and the number of numbers in this case is equal to 4. So if you just do 144 divided by 4, you get that the average will be 37. Or 36. Right, so that's where it gets important. Because they're all odd, and you have a list of even consecutive numbers, the median will be in between the 2 odd numbers. So if the median is 36, the two numbers that are adjacent to it will be 35 and 37. And just follow the pattern. You know that this list must be 33, 35, 37, and 39. If you add them up, the answer will give you 144. The least of these numbers will be 33. So here we have to use a fact, or we can use this to help us out. The average of a list of consecutive numbers is equal to the median. And to find the average, that's just the total divided by the number of data. That could help us out a lot. The other way to do this is to call the smallest number x, then x plus 2, then x plus 4, then x plus 6, and add all of that, set that equal to 144, and then solve for x, which also doesn't take too long. All right, next for number 15. A right triangle with an area of 24 has vertices negative 3, 2, 5, 2, 5, b, where b is greater than 0. What's the value of b? So you have a couple of points here. So I'll draw a quick graph. You have negative 3, 2, which is in quadrant 2. And you have 5, 2, which is in quadrant 1. And you know that something's at 5, b, where b is positive. So that's also quadrant 1. So maybe it's somewhere over here. The idea is that because the 5, b lines up, you can actually make a perfect right triangle where the base goes from negative 3, 2 to 5, 2. So from negative 3 to 5, that's a distance of 8. And we want to know the height, so for b. So the height will be b minus 2. And since we know the area is 24, the formula for the area of a triangle, specifically a right triangle, which is what we have here, is 1/2 base times height. So the base is going to be 8. The height is going to be b minus 2. And the area is given as 24. So we can solve for everything here. 1/2 of 8 is equal to 4. You have 4 times b minus 2 is equal to 24. If you divide by 4 on both sides, you get 6 is equal to b minus 2. Add 2 to both sides, you know that b has to be equal to 8. So the point will be 5, 8. But you just want to know the value b, so that's going to give you 8 as the answer. All right, next for number 16, the base of a rectangular box and the area of 24. The area of one of the faces is 15. If each of the dimensions of the solid is an integer greater than 1, what's the surface area of the box? So we just draw a box here. And you know that one of them, the base, or also the lid, has an area of 24. And one of the faces is 15. So let's say it's that one. Now, because they're all integers or whole numbers, it's bigger than 1, you know that this side must be a common factor of 24 and 15. And 24 and 15, you know, they have 1 as a common factor, but they also have 3 as the other factor. And no other factors. So therefore, one of these sides has to be 3. So if this side is, let's say, 3, then this side has to be 15 divided by 3, or 5. Alternatively, if the base, or if this side is equal to 3, this side will have to be 24 divided by 3, or 8, because 3 times 8 has to be 24, whereas 3 times 5 has to be equal to 15. So that's actually enough to figure out the surface area of the entire box. To find the other face is equal to 40. You take 15, 24, and 40, add them up. That's 79, and you have to double that 79 because we have the back, the left side, and the bottom. And you get that the surface area is equal to 158. You can also use the formula if you have the length, width, and height as 3, 5, 8. the surface area of a box will be 2LW plus 2LH plus 2HW. So you can also use that formula as well. All right, next for number 17, in the correctly worked addition problem above, each letter represents a non-zero digit. If x is greater than y, what's one possible value of a two-digit number, xy? So here, you know that y plus x has to be a 0, and it can't be equal to 20, so it has to be equal to 10. So if you know that it has to be equal to 10, there aren't that many combinations in which x is bigger than y, and they have to add up to 10. So x could be 9, y could be 1, because 9 plus 1 is 10, or 8, 2, 7, 3, or 6, 4. Now it can't be 5 and 5 because x has to be bigger than y. So there are only 4 choices there. So you just add up all those 4 choices. You can have 91 plus 19, 82 plus 28, 73 plus 37, and then 64 plus 46. And just add everything there. So 110 could work because W is just a regular whole digit. It could also be 82 and 28. Uh, 73, 37, or 64 and 46. So any of these would actually work. So any of those 4 choices would work. All right, next one, number 18 in the equation above. How much greater is A than B? Okay, so here you just have to add the fractions because the denominator is already 5. So just add 2a plus 3a, or 5a. You also have negative 4 plus 1, which is negative 3. Divided by 5, that's equal to b. All right, from here, you can multiply both sides by 5. You get that 5a minus 3 is equal to 5b. And from here, you actually can add 3 to both sides and subtract 5b. So just do some rearranging. And the reason why you could do this is you could do you can factor out a 5. So you have 5, then a minus b is equal to 3. And once you divide by 5, you get that a minus b is equal to 3/5. So how much greater is a than b? Well, it's just exactly 3/5 greater. Because a is a bigger number minus the small number is 3/5, or 0.6. So a is 0.6 bigger than b. All right, next for number 19, if x and y are both positive numbers and x squared plus 2xy plus y squared is equal to 121, what's the value of x plus y? We actually saw that before, but this is one of your perfect squares. This is x plus y times x plus y. You can always FOIL it to double check. You can also rewrite this as x plus y in parentheses squared is 121. From here, you can do the square root, and you get that x plus y is equal to 11. All right, next for number 20, if the fifth and sixth terms of a geometric sequence are 112 and 224, what's the average of the second and third terms of the sequence? Now, geometric sequence means that you have to multiply to get to the next number. And because we have adjacent numbers, the fifth number is 112, the sixth number is 224. Here you see that the pattern is times 2. So you want to work backwards, so you just keep dividing by 2. So 112 divided by 2 is 56. Then divide by 2 again, you get 28. And again, 14, and finally 7. So the average of the second and third terms is going to be 14 plus 28 divided by 2. So that's 42 divided by 2, or 21. So the answer for number 20 is 21. One thing to keep in mind is that the general formula to get to the nth term of a geometric sequence, you have to do a of n. The formula is a times r raised to the n minus 1 power, where a is the first number, r is the ratio, the common ratio, what you multiply by to get to the next number, and n is the term number. So that's something that might be useful if you see another question with a geometric sequence. All right, and here is the summary for this page. Question number 1 says, in the correctly worked subtraction problem above, if m and n represent two distinct or different digits, then what's the value of n? So here, you take a look at the middle column. You have m minus 3 is equal to 4. Now, there's 1, leads to this 1, so you know that you can't have a borrowed or anything here. So you can just do 4 plus 3, and you can probably guess that m is equal to 7. Now, if m is equal to 7, 9 minus 7 has to be equal to 2. So this problem will be 179 minus 37, which will be 142. So n would be choice B, 2. All right, next for question number 2. If a pencil manufacturer can produce 2,400 pencils per hour, in how many minutes can the pencil manufacturer produce 120 pencils? So here you know that 2,400 pencils, that's in 1 hour. And here you want to go down to 120 pencils. So to go down to 120 pencils, you have to divide 2,400 by 20. So that means you have to divide the hour by 20 as well. Now you know that 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes. So if you divide 60 minutes by 20, you will get 3 minutes. So that's choice A. Next for question number 3, if r is equal to s plus t divided by 10, what's the value of s when t is equal to 200 and r is equal to 30? So we just substitute in. Instead of r, you have 30. Instead of t, you have 200. So the equation becomes 30 is equal to s plus 200. And you got to divide that by 10. Now, to solve for s, you can multiply by 10 on both sides. So you get 300 on the left is equal to s plus 200. And then you can just subtract 200 on both sides. And you get that s is equal to 100, choice C. Next for number 4, if the square root of 9 minus x is equal to 4, then what's the value of x? So here you have to square both sides to get rid of the square root. And you get that 9 minus x is equal to 4 squared, or 16. So here, if you subtract 9 on both sides, you get that negative x is equal to 7. So if you divide by negative 1, you get that x is equal to negative 7. And you can always check 9 minus negative 7 will be equal to 9 plus 7, or 16. Remember, when you subtract negative, it becomes positive. So the answer is choice D. All right, for number 5, in the figure above, ABCE is a parallelogram and triangle ECD is equilateral. If AE is equal to 8 and the perimeter of triangle ECD is equal to 18, then what's the perimeter of ABCE? All right, so here you can start with the fact that AE is equal to 8. That means that BC is also equal to 8 because opposite sides are equal in a parallelogram. Now, the next piece of information that you have to use is the fact that triangle ECD, this triangle to the right, is equilateral. So equilateral means that the triangle has all angles equal, so each angle is equal to 60 degrees. But more importantly for us in this case, all the sides are equal as well. So if all the sides are equal, and the perimeter is equal to 18, you can just do 18 divided by 3 to get that each of the sides has to be equal to 6. So once you know that, then you know that this side is also going to be equal to AB, which is equal to 6. And that's going to give you all the information to tell you about the perimeter of ABCE. It's 8, 8, 6, and 6. So the answer is choice D, 28. All right, next for number 6, points X, Y, and Z lie on a number line. Now, if X has coordinates of 2, Y has coordinate of 6, and Z has coordinate of 10, what's the distance from the midpoint of XY to point Z? So midpoint just means middle, and to get the middle, you just gotta divide it by 2. So now they're on a number line. So X is at 2, Y is at 6. The midpoint will be the average of these two, which is just 2 plus 6 divided by 2, or 8 over 2, which is 4. So the midpoint is here, and you know that Z is at 10. So the distance from 4 to 10 is just 10 minus 4, or choice A, 6. All right, next for number 7, Kathleen's phone company charges 35 cents each minute of use during peak hours and only 15 cents each minute of use during non-peak hours. If Kathleen's phone company charges her $7.90 for half an hour phone call, what's the number of minutes charged at peak hour rates? So here, the company charged her $7.90, and you know that it's 35 cents each minute during peak hours, and it's 15 cents for non-peak hours. So what you have to do is you have to take the time that she used her phone for peak hours. So we can have P equals the number of minutes at peak hours. And what you want to do is multiply that by 35 cents. Then you have to add it to the time that is non-peak hours. So we can call that N. So N is the number of minutes at non-peak hours. And then you have to multiply that by 15 cents. And the total here will be the $7.90. Now that's one equation, and you have two variables here. Now the second equation you could use is that P plus N is equal to 30, because it's half an hour. So remember, half an hour is 30 minutes. So once you know that P plus N is equal to 30, and you want to know the number of minutes charged at peak hour rates. So P is your variable of interest. I want to solve for P. Here we can actually use either substitution or elimination to get rid of one of these variables. Now, it might be easier to use the elimination method if you modify this. Take this equation, multiply by 100 on both sides. That way you just have whole numbers. So you have 35p plus 15n is equal to 790. And the second equation is p plus n is equal to 30. Now, we want to solve for p, so it actually makes sense here to use the elimination method. And we want to eliminate n. You don't want the variable n because you want the variable p. So that means that you can multiply the second equation by 15 to get the equation the same. And 30 times 15 will become 450. And from here, we can just subtract the two equations. So that n cancels out. 35p minus 15p is 20p. And that's equal to, again, that's 5. 20p is equal to 340. You can divide by 20 on both sides. You get that p is equal to 17. And that's choice D. So that's how you use a system of equations to solve for this. You come up with the two equations. And here we use the elimination method. And we use this method because none of the variables are isolated in this equation or this original equation. You can also use substitution as well, where you have to replace n as 30 minus p and then just solve for p by substituting into the other equation. All right, next for question number 8. In a certain game, players receive a different number of points for catching a ball in different zones of a field colored either yellow or green. One player caught 2 balls in the yellow zone and 3 balls in the green zone. And that was 31 points. Another player caught 3 balls in the yellow zone, 1 ball in the green zone for 22 points. How many points are earned for a ball caught in the yellow zone? So this is actually another system of equations. And you got to set up your equations. So for the first sentence, you have 2 yellow, so 2y, plus 3 green. And that's equal to 31. Now, the second equation for player 2 was 3 yellow and 1 green. And that was equal to 22. And you want to figure out how many points are for yellow. So yellow is your variable of interest. You want to solve for y. So that means you want to eliminate x, or sorry, not x, g. So to eliminate g, you can take that first equation. You want to match the coefficients here. So you can do a proper elimination. You could do that by multiplying by 3 on both sides. So once you distribute that, you have 9y plus 3g is equal to 66. And then the second equation is the same. It's just 2y plus 3g is equal to 31. From here, you can subtract the two equations, just like what we did above. 3g minus 3g gets canceled out, and 9y minus 2y is equal to 7y. And that's equal to 35. Then once you divide by 7, you get that y is equal to 5. So you know that the ball caught in the yellow zone is 5 points. All right, and here's the summary for this page. All right, next for number 9, if B is 4/5 of A and C is 1/2 of B, what's the value of C in terms of A? So if you want C in terms of A, of course, you have to pass through B. So you know that I just turned the first sentence, word sentence, to a number sentence. B is equal to, or is 4/5 of, which is times A. And from here, you can take 4/5 of A and replace it with B in the second equation. So for the second equation, C will be equal to 1/2 of, or times, B instead of B, we have 4/5 of A. From here, you can multiply through. You can also cross simplify here to make it easier. that will give you 2 over 5 of A is equal to C. So that's choice B. C is 2/5 of A. All right, next for number 10, if x is not equal to negative 3/2 and 2x cubed minus x squared minus 6x is equal, or divided by 2x plus 3 is equal to. So the numerator, you can factor out an x to make things a little easier. So I'll give you 2x squared minus x minus 6, and you want to divide by 2x plus 3. And from this, you have to actually factor. So when you factor 2x squared minus x minus 6, because the coefficient of the x squared term is not equal to 1, you'll have to actually do factor by grouping. So you multiply the first term with the last term to get negative 12. You want to list factors of 12. You have 1, 12, 2, 6, and 3, 4. And we see that 3 and 4 can give you the middle term if it's positive 3 and minus 4. So you'll actually turn negative 1x into this negative 1x, you'll turn into two terms, positive 3x and then minus 4x. Okay, positive 3x minus 4x, it's the same as negative 1x. But once you split it up into two different terms, you can do factor by grouping. And here's where the factor by grouping comes in. You group these into two separate terms and just factor them individually. In the first two, you can factor out an x, and that'll give you 2x plus 3. In the second term, you have to factor out negative 2, and that will give you 2x minus 3, plus 3. And now you can factor out 2x plus 3 from both of these terms. So you get 2x plus 3 as one factor. The other factor will be x minus 2. Those two leftovers. And notice 2x plus 3 cancels out. So when you go back to the original, you have x times 2x plus 3 times x minus 2. And we divide by 2x plus 3. The middle terms will cancel out. So you just end up with x times x minus 2. And x times x minus 2 is equal to x squared minus 2x, choice C. So here the key was to do a strategy called factor by grouping. And just a couple of key steps that you have to take if the first term of the x squared is not equal to 1. All right, next for number 11, when an integer r is divided by 5, the remainder is 2. If the product of 7 and r is divided by 5, what's the remainder? So here you know that r divided by 5, get some quotient, and get a remainder of 2. That means that r has to end in either a 2 or a 7, because you know that multiples of 5 and then 0 or 5. Now what you're going to do here is you're going to have to do a product of 7 and r. So if you take this r and you multiply by 7, then you divide that by 5. So let's come up with some possible answers for r. R could be 2, 7, 12, 17, 22, 27, etc. Now, if you multiply 7 by all of these numbers, that'll be 14, 49, 84, 17 times 7. We'll end at 9 again. It's 119. Either way, you see a pattern here. If you do 7r divided by 5, you will always get a remainder equal to 4. If you take all those numbers divided by 5, it's always 4, 9, then 4, then 9, 4, then 9. So the answer is choice D. All right, next for number 12, if x divided by y is 1.25, where x and y are positive integers, which of the following statements cannot be true? So here they're whole numbers because they're integers and they're also positive. And just want to go through all the choices to see which of the following cannot be true. So choice A says x times y is an even integer. Well, here if you have 1.25, you can have x equals to 125, y equals to 100. And if you multiply x times y, 5 times 0 will give you a number that ends in 0, so this could be true. So we can eliminate that. This will have a number that ends in 0, which means it's also divisible by 5. So those can't be it. Now, for DNE, you would have to add. So 125 plus 100 is equal to 225. That is odd. So we disprove choice E. So just between choice B and D left. You want to try to make x times y an odd integer, or x plus y to be an even integer. So just pick a new set of numbers. So x over y is 1.25, and that's equal to 1 1/4. So you can turn this into 5 over 4. So x is equal to 5, y is equal to 4. Here, x times y is still 20, so it's not odd yet. But here, 5 plus 4 is equal to 9, and it's also just not even. So try a new set. You can make x equal to 10 and y equal to 8 when you just double it. So here, 10 times 8, of course, is still even. But 10 plus 8 is also even. It's equal to 18. So choice D, that would be disproven. So the answer that's left is choice B. And so one that is left, you can't have an odd integer here. All right, next for number 13. If 28 kilograms of a certain material has a volume of 24 liters, what will be the volume in milliliters of 14 grams of the same material? And here I have some conversions. So you know that 28 kilograms has a volume of 24 liters. And you only want 14 grams, so let's convert to grams first. So 28 kilograms is 28,000 grams. And that's 24 liters or 24,000 milliliters. And want to turn 28,000 into just 14 grams. Do that by dividing by 2,000 to get rid of the 3 zeros. So you also have to divide the right side by 2,000. And that will just give you 12. Choice C. So this is just a proportion question, or you can also use unit rates. Just make sure you convert. Kilo, remember, is 1,000. 1,000 times bigger, and milli is 1,000 times smaller. All right, next one, number 14. What's a measure of each of the internal angles in a regular octagon? And this is your stop sign. So the formula for the total sum of the interior angles of an n-sided polygon the formula you can use is n minus 2 times 1/80. That comes from the fact that you just break a shape, let's say a quadrilateral, into smaller triangles. You pick a corner and you connect all the sides, you have 2 triangles. For a pentagon, that's going to be 3 triangles. So that's 540, and et cetera, et cetera. So here for a stop sign, which is an octagon, you'll actually form 6 triangles. So 180 times 6, or n minus 2, which is equal to 6 times 180, is 1080. Now, a regular shape means that all sides are equal and that all angles are equal. So that means that you can just take 1080 divided by 8, because there are 8 angles here, to figure out. That should be a 3. That each of the angles will be 135 degrees, choice D. So when you have this regular octagon, or as regular as it gets, each of these will be 135 degrees. All right, next for number 15, here figuring out drawing a scale. What happens to the area of the rectangle ABCD if h is doubled and side P is halved? So if you double h, notice that the height is h squared. So 2h squared, you actually have to distribute this exponent to everything inside the parentheses. This is the law a of exponents. A times b squared is, or a times b to the c power, is a to the c times b to the c. So in this case, it's 2 squared times h squared, or 4h squared. The height got quadrupled in this case. And now the side P is halved. So here P is halved. This will turn to 3P over 2, or 1.5P. You can just leave it as 3P over 2. So this side got halved, but the height got quadrupled. So if you quadruple the height, but then you halve the length, a quadruple means times 4. So 4 times the height, and you have 1/2 the length. 4 and 2 cancel out, and you just have 2, which means that the area got doubled. So put in other words, the old area is h squared times 3p. The new area is now 4h squared times 3p over 2. And here, you can replace this as h squared times 3p, which is the original area, but you have this 2 in the denominator and this 4 in the numerator. So that's 4 over 2, or 2h squared times 3p. So notice this is the same as the old area. So the new area is equal to 2 times the old area, or the area got doubled. You can also solve this question by replacing h and p with just random numbers. All right, and here's the summary for the last page. Thank you everyone for joining me today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. All right, bye everyone.